And I'm going to start a new way this evening. Okay, so everybody, welcome to Tuesday night virtual Dharma gathering. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in New York. And tonight's topic is simplicity. Simplicity. So just how you know that how we arrive at these topics is basically is sort of related to what happens during the week before, particularly with the students that I'm working with one-to-one, and also issues that I notice coming up. And in this case, for me, it was an issue of seeing how complicated life can get because I have to move. And one of the things that became apparent was a lot of the issues that I was dealing with had to do with stuff. That without the stuff, life would be much, much simpler. Which I guess if you reduce completely, you come to the state of a monk or a nun. Just have the clothes that you need and not too much else that you own. But hopefully as yogis and sadhus and householder type yogis and sadhus, we can strike a balance and a middle way in terms of owning things. So I think the first thing I wanted to start with is asking the rhetorical question of, do you own your stuff or does your stuff own you? And then beyond that, the notion of clutter altogether was something I hope we could take a look at. Clutter. Hi Anna, you're in Pomona. Wow. Okay, so take it your internet is up and running there. So, clutter, we're going to use this this week, and I hope, hopefully we'll say a few things as usual, but we have plenty of time for discussion about this issue. Clutter being a metaphor in terms of our outer world, where it's very easy to see, when you walk into space, how the person's relating to, or how we are relating to our space, and whether the space is clean or cluttered, and what the effect that has on our state of mind and our whole living situation is something probably a lot of you have thought about, or not. And then using that as a sort of analog for the notion of clutter in the mind, how much stuff is going on in our mind. So I think, having taught meditation for quite a few years now, it's fairly common for people to go to comment about two things once they start doing some practice. And one is the amount of clutter in their mind being disturbing, and the other is the speed at which it's moving around. And I would say, I'm going to go crazy and say 70 to 80% of the people who start to meditate are in some way attempting to relate to the clutter in their mind. And then beyond that, the feeling of emotional intensity or drama. And so the clutter in this case is not just a static clutter, but it's dynamic clutter. And it's moving around, and it's sometimes moving too fast and creating a sort of panic in the person who holds that particular mindset, right? That could be us. So, the art of Buddhism is reducing clutter. And the reason I want to frame it that way for tonight is to look at what the basic view, of the Buddha Dharma is that somehow underneath all that clutter, in the kind of fundamental space of our being and our state of mind, there is a quality that is completely fruitional already, which is called a number of different things: Buddha nature, bodhicitta, basic goodness. That already, before we try to add more things to ourselves, and look at their practices. Well, if I only had kindness, if I only had generosity, if I only had patience, and add, and pile those things on. When we instead strip away and get to the fundamental the fundamental quality of ourselves, then from the Buddhist point of view, this is already realized situation, or a extremely positive situation, a good situation. So obviously, it's hard to, just as it's hard when you go into a teenager's room to sort of see the basic goodness of the space. It's sort of our situation in a way. Then also it's hard when you go into a very cluttered, speedy, dramatic mind to see the basic goodness of that person. And most often that person is, of course, ourself, right? We have a hard time sometimes seeing our own basic goodness. So one analogy that's pretty good, if we sort of take the discussion in that direction, for the Buddha nature, for the awakened mind, is if you take the example of silver. I like to use silver like the kind you have maybe in your house, and maybe it was from your grandmother. That's how a lot of people seem to get silver these days, or if you had a wedding. I'm sure some of you have bought silver for yourselves, but I'm willing to bet it's a small number. You look at the silver and it's beautiful and has luster, and it's not, it's a natural thing. So in a similar way, basic goodness is like that. Now, over the course of time, if you just leave the silver there and you don't tend to it properly, and you don't work with its nice silvery lustrous quality and appreciate it, it begins to develop tarnish, right? Which is a sort of crusted on quality of, it's really oxidation, but the silver appears to lose its luster. And I think a lot of us might feel that way about either our state of mind or the person sitting next to us, that it's lost its luster, or maybe you might even feel it never had any luster, your own state of mind, or somebody else that you're sort of trying to come to terms with. But the basic premise is the luster is lying beneath, it's underneath. And what we have to do with our practice is actually clean away or scrape away, remove the clutter, which in this case is the oxide. And then the luster just expresses itself. So that's a very, it may seem idiot simple in a way. Well, that's the topic of the talk anyhow tonight. But the notion of removing, of reducing, of simplifying as the heart of our spiritual practice, even though it sounds obvious in a way, I think if you look at the way we go about it, it feels like we're accumulating things. And we have a big shopping bag, and we say, I'll stuff this in, I'll take this, I'll take some different practices, I'll take all these different things, and then I'll build up to a state of enlightenment, I'll build up to it, like building a pyramid, boom, boom, boom. Then I'll climb to the top of that, and then I'll have some kind of quality of goodness, wakefulness, appreciation, light, energy, clarity, all the things that we are drawn towards naturally. So the notion of stripping away as the essence of the practice, of removing layers of oxidized and clutter of habits and thoughts and vines and thick kind of quality, and seeing that as obscuring this kind of quality of basic goodness, and just in a sense we're polishing the silver when we practice. if you hold the view that the essential nature, the basic quality, is other than some kind of fundamental goodness, it's almost impossible to conceive of how you would construct it and how you would build it and how you'd fabricate it. Because the simple logic is if you did build it, fabricate it, construct it, it would be subject to being to impermanence and decay. And it would be something we'd have to sustain all the time and kind of through a tight effort we'd be holding our basic goodness together, But I think, even though it sounds obvious, I think that's what a lot of us are doing, actually, and working so hard, towards creating some kind of constructed version of ourselves that somehow will be acceptable and more appealing. And boy, that's going to be a long and winding road, isn't it? So our practice and tradition sort of posits this very, and maybe not dissimilar to many other wonderful spiritual traditions, there has to be some kind of proclamation of goodness at the heart of it. However we say it, whatever we call it, if that goes unrecognized, then and our approach to practice is that we're going to construct goodness, by effort, then we're always on guard. Basically, there can never be real peace that way, or ease. So this is the basic point. I think we've been talking about it different ways for the last several weeks, in terms of last week with kind of the notion of space, openness, keeping an open mind, and it's really going to be the same story over and over and over again. Different ways of looking at it. So, I had a few things. That's the basic point, and then I had a few things to sort of talk about within that. One thing is the relationship between simplicity and complexity, and what comes to mind immediately is Albert Einstein. I don't know how he popped in there, but he's in there. And the notion of E equals mc squared is so simple. How does somebody arrive at that powerful simplicity of just being able to see the essence, of something in that way? And our practice somehow, even though it's a funny twist, and particularly I would say in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a heart of simplicity, but man, is it complex. And people can tell they're doing incredibly complex practices with visualizations of deities, with all kinds of, with arms and heads and colors and ornaments, and very, very much using the full range of the mind's capacity to relate to the detail aspect. But if we don't have some kind of fundamental simplicity in terms of the way we go about it, I think we'll flounder. That's so. For me, the fundamental simplicity, one of the aspects of it is trusting, in a certain sense, the instructions that you're following. And I'll give you an example. As a teacher, I see people overcomplicate meditation instructions all the time. So I spend a lot of time trying to reduce shamatha instruction to 2 pages, which maybe Seth, you could post that in case anybody hasn't seen that yet, a link to that. But it took a lot of work to crystallize it to 3 steps. You take a seat. You draw your attention to your breathing, which is very much simplifying your whole operation. And when you notice your mind wandering off, you label it thinking and bring your attention back to the breath. So the question is, we have that instruction. It's been passed down, really, probably goes all the way back to Buddha. But it certainly goes back to many, many great teachers who, for whatever reason, say, look, try this. Because why try this? Why would you have to do such a thing? Why would anybody tell you or ask you or suggest that you do those 3 steps and spend time in your busy day breaking out into this sort of exaggerated simplicity? Because it is exaggerated. When we get up from the cushion, we have to have that kind of mindfulness while we're walking around, while we're at our work, while we're trying to explain something to somebody. We can't always grasp onto the simplified version, but we're cultivating something there, which is how to reduce our attention diagram, and by learning how to pay attention to one thing properly, we gradually learn how to pay attention to sequences of things with a similar focus. So if I give meditation instruction in an introductory workshop, which is, my karma has been to do that quite frequently over the years to people who really don't have much background in that, I give that instruction every time. And ironically, I don't know why, I don't ever tire of doing it. I might have even a new student one-to-one, because it's always extremely personal and direct. You're talking to those people at that point. You're not just passing along a dogma. You're communicating an essential pith type of instruction. And so you have to catch somebody's mind to deliver that, They have to hear you. But I'm not shocked anymore by the absolute frequency or regularity at which people restructure those instructions, recompose them, edit them, elaborate on them is often the case, add to it, or flat out don't do it. Right? So that's not really simplicity. That's elaboration. And the whole direction of this practice is to reduce and simplify the situation down to you're sitting still, right? You're not running around the room and trying to fix dinner at the same time and call your friend and check your email and watch television and do all those things at once. So the body is parked, in this kind of meditation practice, which is really simplifying the physical situation down to 0. Obviously, you still have to relate to the body. Your knee might hurt, but at a certain point, you're sitting there, and like you're not really moving in the way that you're usually doing during the day. There's stillness there, and it's highly attenuated, and it's really simplifying the body situation. Then you go with the mind, right? And you're saying to the mind, okay, look, you're used to jumping all over like a frog, like James Joyce novel, like spaghetti, like a monkey. But now I just want you to do one thing. So you're taking your mind's energy, really, and your attention, and bringing it to one point, which is the breathing. And then you're further simplifying by saying, just remember to come back to that, because you will wander. You will, by habit, sort of drum up all kinds of things. As we well know, anybody who's done any meditation knows that you're shadow boxing most of the time. You're shadow boxing. You're working with this thought and that emotion and this memory and that anxiety. So as an antidote to that, we're saying, just let it go. For now. All the armies of Mara will regroup and attack later. But right now, let it go. And you come back, you recognize it, and you come back to the breath. So this is a highly artificial practice. It's an important point to understand. So we're not really just trying to become good at it. We're trying to glean the meaning from it and the tone and the mood from it, which is simplicity itself. So then simplicity is directly adjacent to contentment, that you could have so little going on, and yet one notices sooner or later that it's a very satisfying, ultimately place to be. Of course, we have to get rid of our clutter habit and our speed to have even a glimpse of appreciating the possibility of enjoying or appreciating or being content with that level of simplicity. But it will happen sooner or later if we practice diligently, because we're shifting our habit and we're basically cleaning out the clutter in our mind. Then you move on to meditation in action, right? So that you can actually taste food, feel water when you drink it, look at fabric of clothing when you buy it, and really, even if you live in a very elaborate world from an external point of view, if you have simplicity, if you have this understanding of simplicity, everything is going to be workable. Even to the level that we say in our tradition, the Shambhala tradition, the person could become a universal monarch. They could be the head of state. And so that the whole operation, the whole interaction with the world is not governed by speed and anxiety. That's not the driving force. So if we achieve simplicity, if we cultivate simplicity, we can move into complex situations and maintain that kind of grounded quality. And that's how you know the mark of a true practitioner. As we said up at Karma Chilling on the retreat, somebody said to me, we're talking about some aspect of practice and saying, of course, the proof is in the pudding. And I said, well, if you want to hide the proof somewhere, that's the place to hide it. And, you know, we're not talking about faking anything here. And faking is too complicated, basically, for this. So, there was a couple of other things. The point there that I wanted to sort of just reiterate is that even our approach to Dharma, to the solution, to the antidote, we could have a certain simplicity, not overcomplicate it, you know? Even if you're studying a complex text or something like that, you could do it. If you're looking at the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. It sounds like, oh my God, what are they talking about? You could just go at it very simply and look and see what's being said and go one step at a time into it. So this is a cornerstone of the Buddhist practice and the approach towards the sophistication or subtlety, you know, of things. The core is simplicity. So much so that when you study the full range of, Tibetan Buddhist teachings, at the highest level, what's considered to be the ultimate expression of this whole journey, taken from this point of view, is called Maha-Ati, great ultimate, nothing beyond it. It's the ninth jhana, or vehicle of the path of Tibetan Buddhism. It's the finish. It's the there's no practice level beyond this, and it's also called Dzogchen in Tibetan. When we talk about that, the kind of expression becomes very, very direct in a way. And when we've experienced these great teachers from this tradition, something is clear, and also from the Mahamudra tradition, which is very similar in terms of fruition level. The people who master this level appear to be extremely simple and grounded. So much so that, and Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche comes to mind as the absolute, emblazoned image in my mind of all the teachers I ever met of this quality. So much so that that is called in the tradition old dog. That's the technical term for it, old dog. And, if you've had a dog and it's a puppy, it's like a young Dharma student, it's like a puppy, and this thing and that thing, and I read this, and I compared this to that, and the 16 this and the 14. But the old dog is kind of chilled in an unreproducible, unfakeable way, if you have an old dog. And I'm not talking about feeble. We're not talking about feeble and kind of like past the prime. There's a sense of relaxation and kind of nothing left to prove. And also the quality of extreme simplicity. So this is also embodied in the tradition by a deity or a kind of energy body called Samantabhadra, which means all good. And unlike some of the other representations, he's naked and represents extreme simplicity and kind of beyond fabrication. So at the end of the day, our practice will steer in that direction. Of course, there's many, sort of movements, but at the end of the day, if we just settle into our being in a kind of, and get comfortable in our own skin, even with all the issues, this is not saying there's nobody has relative circumstances anymore at this point. It's all relative circumstance at this point. That's all there is. There's no attachment to anything sort of beyond that. So the sign of this particular type of practice is the person just settles into the world and deals with things as they come up, as if there was no resistance at all to anything arising. That's what's said. And of course we're steering towards that, and we're sort of favoring this and avoiding that, and sure. But at some point, a kind of freshness and openness towards the world around us and towards the people around us, and not trying to block anything or manipulate anything. Just respond organically, and on the spot. So I think that was something I wanted to point out. This is a very full. The level of simplicity is not just the beginning. It's the beginning, and it's the middle, and it's the end of all of this. So, another, of course, powerful model for me and for anybody who studied alongside in what's now the Shambhala Buddhist lineage was Trungpa Rinpoche. And I think the beauty of those particular days of study was that many of us got to really see this great teacher, not just presenting formal teachings, from the dais, from the pulpit, so to speak, from the throne, from the teacher's chair, but at the ordinary level, the organic level of daily living. And so even though Trungpa Rinpoche was able to manage quite a lot of different situations and a fairly complex array of people coming at him from all different angles, I would say that simplicity was a through line. Extreme presence and mindfulness. And there was one time I was over at the house he was staying at with him, and even though he had attendants and he had people who could cook for him and things like that, he went into the kitchen and he boiled some water and he poured it into a bowl, and then he dropped a little piece of meat into the water, which was now very hot, and a scallion. And the meat is cooking by the water. So and then he ate it. We ate it. We both had it. And then he said, you know, good bowl of soup, good meal. And there was total satisfaction. And then he said, this is called bandit soup in Tibet because the bandits never had time to prepare a proper meal. So they would just boil water, drop the meat in it, and there's your soup. So this kind of level of appreciating the simplest thing is the ground for then, if we don't have that, we won't enjoy a 9-course dinner. There'll be all hungry ghost, speedy mind, craving, clinging. But if we do have this, we could enjoy in the same way a beautiful, elegant dinner or a beautiful, elegant life. So this is interesting, the difference between craving and attachment and just having this core of simplicity running through, and then from there being able to appreciate at all levels of subtlety of how things come together. So I wanted to share that example. And then finally, that this kind of simplicity, to distinguish it from laziness, and ignoring and dullness, because that would be a kind of a mistaken identification of what we're talking about, that you just kind of dull it down to one little thing that you can sort of manage. And it's sort of out of poverty and a kind of fear of like not being able to handle. So you go, I'm just doing this, or I'm too lazy to do any kind of real practice, so I'm practicing simplicity. And they say the only person who really knows is oneself. Obviously, if you have faith in a teacher, they'll give you feedback, but if you don't like what you hear, you'll refabricate it. It happens all the time. Yeah, I said that, but that's in this one case, it's not really true. So the only real witness we have, in a way, for whether we're deceiving ourselves or not, is ourselves. And ironically, to achieve simplicity, coming from the ground which we're coming from, which is a kind of a fairly elaborate and complexly fabricated, situation with a lot of twists and turns and anxiety and fear and need to cover up. We haven't achieved that level of simplicity. In order to do it, we have to have tremendous exertion. So that, of course, is the irony of that. There are many people who hear Dzogchen teachings and they go, well, that's easy, I'm already doing that. Or I can certainly get it mastered in a weekend, But ha, and ha, Because the final situation is that to retrieve, you don't get to be an old dog by not being a young dog first. So there's a sort of sense of progression towards this, and of course it's accessible immediately, but so are our habits, and so are our sense of what we've created. So simplicity is something that needs cultivation, appreciation of it, even though it's natural. It's natural simplicity, but we cultivate our connection with it and our recognition of it and our ability to abide that way. We recognize it and then we cultivate abiding, So there has to be a lot of letting go, and it takes effort to let go. It's weird. When you tell people let go, they go. And basically one of the ways to get people to let go is give them very complicated stuff to do, which is sometimes what I think the real clever aspect of some of these teachings is. Hold this here and do that there and this there, and then, at a certain point, the mind just can't keep manipulating all of that information, and you relax into it. So the point is, it takes exertion at our stage of the game to tune into, to appreciate simplicity, and to develop and to regroove that kind of, make that the habit, and to have comfort and ease with who we are, and therefore with the world that we're in. Comfort and ease. So I think, mostly that's what I wanted to say. And as usual, the fun part of this, I hope, is where some of you chip in and say. And so in case you just tuned in, if you open second window in your browser, go to facebook.com/David Nichtern, you'll see a scroll of comments there, which you can either relate to, or you can click on about 5 down. There's a click-through that Seth put up, and then you'll see all the comments coming down together on there. So every once in a while you may have to refresh the page to see the latest comments, but I see there's already quite a few. So I'm going to just start working with some of these comments. I know the people who are regulars know how to just chip in and get into it. And then we'll, spend the rest of the time doing this sort of call and response discussion. Now, also feel free to comment on somebody else's comment. As close as we can get to sort of group discussion, that's okay too, with the medium that we have. So, okay. So Dharmatard is saying, wow, already very helpful, thank you. Well, good. But if you have a question, throw it in there. Marianne Marquez, darn. Oh, I'm in the same situation, hearing only about 5 words every 30 seconds. Wow. Sorry about that. Seth, if you have any ideas for these people, could you write them in? And also then, Seth, put the mindfulness meditation instruction link right below that, so you'll see that. Hi, Maipi Jyoti, Toronto. Yep. She was just at the weekend. We just had a weekend at Menla Institute with Krishna Das, and Mai was there chanting away. So glad you got home safe. So Kathleen Sullivan, here's the first sort of question we can look at. I just have to expand this a little bit. Oops. One of the things about this way is you need to stretch it out so you see everything. Isn't there a core of things you need to know before it's possible to be simple? There's the old saw. If I'd had more time, I don't know what saw means there. If I'd had more time, I'd have written you a shorter letter. In my work, I find this is true. The more I know, the more simply I can explain it or do it. Isn't part of the complexity that we beginners have with meditation lack of familiarity? Well, that's wonderful. I basically agree, and I think that's the last thing I was trying to say, that this is a cultivation. But we could take a simple attitude towards cultivating it too. Like not make a huge drama about practice, just kind of do it. That would be like, or if we're studying, put your mind into it, really connect with the material. So simplicity underlies even cultivation. It's sort of an approach, So Marilyn is saying, meditation in action, washing the dishes to wash the dishes? Absolutely. Very rare. When you go to Karma Chuling, you don't get to do anything else, when you're washing the dishes. And there's a little shrine in the kitchen. So that's, we can take that as far as we can take that. Okay, and now also Seth posted right below that, if you like to watch these broadcasts ad-free and use Firefox for your internet browser, download this free plugin, and he gave you instructions there. So now when I do it on Firefox, there's no commercial interruptions. So that's we can sort of get that going that way. Okay. Marilyn is asking, in the tarnishing of the silver of our mind, is there an element of letting go, forgiving that comes into play? Well, I think, Marilyn, that we get quite attached to the tarnish. And in the Shambhala, teachings, we talk about it as a cocoon-like structure of kind of habitual patterns that we weave around us, and we get quite comfortable within that. So the tarnish begins to become what we're used to, and we go, I don't know, maybe too lazy to get out and polish. But when we do get out the polish and polish it, there's a certain feeling of exertion to do that, but then there's a feeling of the luster coming back. So I think letting go is letting go of attachment to our habits. And that, ironically, has the feeling of exertion or discipline at cultivating good habits, which takes some effort. If if you're a lazy person, it takes effort to activate. So the whole thing could be quite simple, but at a certain point, we understand with our prajna, with our discriminating awareness, that something needs to get done about all this. And that's the flip side. As we look at samsara or the cocoon, it will go on forever. It's a perpetual motion machine if you keep putting the quarters into the spin cycle. So I would say the letting go and is letting go of our attachment to our sort of negative habits, and then forgiving is naturally part of that, because if you just then start dumping on yourself and blaming yourself for all that, it just creates a tight loop. So there's a kind of compassion or friendliness in the whole approach, but there's some effort. And then you said that you asked the question about letting go, and I just talked about it. So I'm just talking about it a little bit more. Justine, for the past 15 years, I have worked as a behaviorist with dogs. Oh, cool. And more currently, horses. You're working your way to the big. You'll be with elephants next. They have been great teachers in that you learn that their minds are steeped with simplicity. In order to properly communicate, one must keep the human mind very now, within the breath. When you do, the response is always on point. Dogs cannot or will not team up with a human that has a speedy and cluttered mind. Although they can be I found dogs can be very forgiving. Their awareness is keen, and to successfully communicate, the human must be aligned with that mindset. You cannot fake it because they know if you're being authentic and open. I'll drink to that. It has been an arduous but amazing practice for me. My greatest challenge is teaching the humans to begin to work in this manner. Well, are you working on humans yet, Justine? Or have you started doing that too? But I've learned you can always teach an old dog new tricks. Okay. Sweet. Thank you for sharing that. Neely, I do think one advantage of my current disabilities, which prevent me from doing a lot of what I used to do, is my life has gotten more simple in some ways, and I realize how often I don't really need all the other options. But I also think sometimes I'm more just avoiding what was once easy but is now hard, but not impossible. The trick for me is definitely discerning the difference between appreciation of less and avoidance of difficulty. Yeah. I think that would be true for everybody, Neely. That's where discernment comes in. We have to know what our capacity is, where the edge is for us. And, I don't think just madly pushing ourselves to the ultimate is the name of the game. So that's where the middle way kind of is a resonant thing, not too tight and not too loose. And for everybody, it's different. So I appreciate you saying that. It's understood. So again, if anybody wants to participate at this point, if you're just joining us, so you go again to facebook.com/David Nichtern, you'll see this scroll, and you'll see the link to it going on. So okay, we have some more comments. Emma, I've not been meditating regularly for very long, and have that whirlwind in the mind when meditating. Does this ever reduce or stop through practice, or does it just become less important? You know, I think, you know, you can read what's said about those kind of things, which is that if the practice didn't have some efficaciousness to it, you know, it'd be hard to imagine it, hundreds of years and thousands of people going like, you know, I tried this, but it didn't work. But pass it along. So, you know, it could be like the joke that Sat Han, my Tai Chi teacher and Taoist trickster master, told me today, which I'm still laughing about, which is there's a carnival, and in the carnival there's a sign outside one of the tents that says, man eating chicken inside. So everybody's going, well, God, what does a man eating chicken look like? That must be something really, really scary and intense. And of course, it's a, you know, carnival circus thing. So along with the bearded lady, you pay your money, you go inside. And then he said, inside, when you go inside, there is a man eating chicken. And, you know, I told him I don't hear a lot of good jokes anymore these days because they used to get passed through the musicians in the studios, and now there are no musicians in the studios. There's just a guy sitting with a computer and a guy sitting with a computer in the next room. So I was very happy to hear a good new joke. But the point was, the person has been sort of tricked, and they're passing it along to the next person. Oh, you got to go in and see that. You know, so if Buddhism was just that, you know, yeah, you follow the breath, you develop one pointedness, the mind sort of, you know, steadies down, quiets down after time, but it didn't work at all for anybody, then you come out of the meditation hall, you go, well, you should try this. There's a man eating chicken inside. So I think, sorry, I just had to squeeze that in, Emma, because I've been laughing about it all day. But I think, you know, the technique, if we apply it simply and with some degree of steadiness and regularity, yes, you develop the capacity to, and what we say is the shamatha meditation will gradually develop strength or presence of mind, and clarity, you know, kind of a less delusional quality in the mind, and stability, which is what you're talking about here, which is even though whirlwind might come and go, we're still less caught up by it, you know. And then at times, sometimes you just can actually just settle into the technique. But of course, for most of us, because of the life that we're living is so energetic and so active and so conceptual in a way, there's a natural, it takes quite a bit of cultivation in our modern world. I saw a movie once that was called The Salt Men of Tibet. And, I mean, these people, this is only like 30 years ago. And they're living without any electronic devices, any cars, anything. And they go 6 months with their oxen to go. It takes a month to get to this lake where the salt is. It takes them a couple of months to harvest the salt from the lake. They load up the oxen, and another couple of months to go back. And that movie was so spacious, even just telling these people's story. And I went, none of these people need to meditate at all. They're living it. It's just total sense of spaciousness and simplicity because that's all there is. So I think for us, you know, we have to really be aware of the fact that we're working with, you know, a very active situation. We have to have some sympathy for that, hyperactive in some sense, attention deficit world that we're living in. So then, you know, I think just, Emma, just working steadily, and if you can work with other people, you know, I know there's a Shambhala Center in London if that's where you are, and you can go sit with other people and hear some teachings from time to time and do some steady practice, and then just gradually, you know, we're cultivating mindfulness. That's what we're practicing. So it's just like anything else. You don't start with the fruition of the thing you're cultivating. That's why you're doing the practice. So I'd be encouraging about that, but we also say, abandon all hope of fruition and don't hold on too much to the result. Just do the practice. The practice is the simplicity of coming back, coming back. Okay, so that's a good question. Thank you. Okay. Laurel says, I let a lot of stuff go this fall. Yeah, you're not the only person. Lots of emotional family stuff. Holding on to anger for several years, but finally somehow I turned a corner and it fell away. What a release. Yeah. Well, that's just, we don't, the thing that we don't notice is that even our negativity, the things that we're most caught up in, are impermanent. And this is a powerful thing. You might think only good things like life and um, ice cream are impermanent, but our kleshas, our obstructions, our confusion is impermanent. And if you don't keep feeding it, eventually it's going to drop away. And the meditation practice, and coming back to Emma's point, is you're not feeding the beast when you're meditating. You're not creating new karma, new dramas. There's no input. So that's a good point. Okay, Susan is saying, I call it being comfortable in my uncomfortableness. Sure. Afraid to step up in case of failure. Yeah. There's something in all this that, willing to be authentic. We have expressions like not afraid to be a fool, and, also noting that part of living is very poignant, and we're not ashamed if we're a little bit sad or touched by things. Allowing the natural humor in the situation to bubble up a little bit, even if it's unseating to our kind of pride or ego. That's good work. Well, I'm going to look and see if there's some more questions at this point. But these are good ones. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see some familiar. So Neely, Margaret, let's do you. You're in order. Hi, Margaret. The thing that's helped me the most this year is one simple statement said by you, then by Acharya Spiegel. Shift awareness from the head to the heart. My paraphrase. Changed my practice so much recently. Thank you. Okay. Neely, I definitely have to download that ad block because an ad coming right as David was about to respond to my comment. Glad I can watch this again later. Okay, yeah, good. And for those of you who don't know, at the end of this we'll post a link on my Facebook page so you can watch this, but also any of the other talks over the last year. There's probably 40 or 50 of them at this point online. So you can watch them at your own convenience on your own timetable. Marilyn is saying, if it is okay, would like to offer an invite to anyone who would like to join our Facebook page, Philosophy with Moo. Absolutely okay. So if any of you want to check out what Marilyn's up to, the link is right there. Okay. You're welcome, Kathleen. Judy Statzinger. What's up, Grandma? I heard about that. I guess it says something powerful there. Judy Statzinger and I went to see Bob Dylan in concert when we were in high school together. Lifetime friend. Wonderful discussion. Thanks. You are welcome. Hey, if you have time to drop me a little note and just tell me how that's all going, I'm happy to hear from you. Sorry we didn't get to visit when you were in New York. Okay, so Nanette is saying, it's funny you bring up dogs. Well, actually, Justine brought up dogs. So the ads have been talking collies from Geico Insurance. Seen them 3 times so far this evening. Can't wait to try the ad-free browser link next time. Yeah. Well, and thank you, Seth, for finding that, because, of course, if we can get around the ads, that's fantastic. So, we have time for a few more. As usual, we're kind of running out. Okay, you're welcome, Emma, and let me know how that goes if you do check out the London Shambhala Center. I'd like to sort of follow up on those kind of things and hear what people think. Okay, Dharma's just commenting, I'm the worst horse for sure, and I'm exhausted. This topic is perfect and hopefully will lead to me to becoming more skillful. Yeah, well, I think you're not the worst horse. I know some pretty bad horses. Some of the worst horses don't even show up for any of these things. And they're arrogant. Think they know everything. So that's a bad horse. Compared to that, Cameron Keys. Oh, hi, Cameron. I can't get over all that I've read about direct perception of emptiness, rainbow body, realization, etc. My simplicity is oriented toward these moments of realization. Is that not simple and good? Oh, goodness. I can't get all that I've read. Well, I think you know the answer already, Cameron, but if those things just become, kind of more fancier, elaborate thought forms, it might be good to go back down to the level of washing the dishes. That's what I think. That's why I love Zen. I appreciate Zen so much because they don't really talk about those kind of things. If you brought that up in a Zendo, they'd probably make you wash more dishes, So I don't know. I mean, I think if we use the teachings as signposts toward experiences, and we have some kind of genuine connection with the experience, and the signpost has directed us, then it's very beautiful and powerful. And I also think to understand the view of the full range of practices is very good. And then it's also really good to be able to know where we are at any moment in time in terms of what remedy to apply for our own practice. So, I don't know your whole situation in terms of what you're doing and who you're doing it with. So maybe, if you want to write to me separately and just have a chat about it, I'm totally into it. And if any of you want to write to me, davidnichtern@gmail.com. I try to hit the ball back if people want to have a Dharma chat. I think of it as like playing chess in the park, that kind of approach. Christian, no question, just loving how you cracked yourself up with man eating chicken. Well, first Master Han cracked me up this morning. He's really slipped it in too. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Hey, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I don't know what you're all doing. I'm going up to visit my sister, and I'm really happy about that. Little family action, and looking forward to that. Justine, Nanette, haha, didn't hear my comment either, listening to Talking Collies, thought that was a funny coincidence. Yeah. Well, and kind of synchronicity rearing its cute little curly-haired, nappy-headed head, So there's a few more. Let me just do one or two more. Okay. Seth is saying, I've had periods of depression when I come to paring down my priorities and needs to simple essentials as a coping mechanism. Feels a bit like a sort of reboot, if you like, shutting down all those background processes that have accumulated to the point of affecting my day-to-day functioning. Meditation has sometimes been helpful in this. Yeah. It doesn't stop the feeling of everything flying by, but it helps me not to fly along with it. Well, that's good. That sounds good. What I find very challenging is that I lose sight of this, and helpful habits and meditation practice trail off. Sure, when I feel okay again. Any pointers to maintaining this in the future? And I think you really answer your own question there, which is, don't wait till you feel bad to practice. It's too late already. So use some of that kind of positive energy as inspiration to, feel like, okay, I can do this now. I have the time, the energy, and keep that big view of the fact that we need to practice, when the sun is out, not just when it's raining. you could just really take that view, Seth, make yourself the discoverer of that view, and then you can, kind of abide in it. So maybe that's a good note to end on, is that wherever we are with all this stuff, it's honest effort. All of us are making a sincere effort to work in our best way possible, and we can lean into that, and also maybe appreciate ourselves some as and the other people as sort of some kind of fundamental goodness, and I find if you come from that point of view, the notion of basic goodness has served me in my life very well, in terms of really noticing it, you could say, because I don't really feel like I have to invent it, but noticing it, that even within each one of our struggles, within our dramas and stuff, there's some kind of fundamental good quality there that can be brought out more. And if you take that view in relation to yourself and in relation to others, the day is going to feel fruitful and like a good day. So I'm happy you all joined in. Great to see everybody so regularly. I really appreciate everybody coming and sharing this hour together in this way. If you have any further questions, please feel free to lob them over to me directly, or contact each other if you want. This is a multidimensional situation. And then next week we'll continue on Tuesday night. And somebody had requested to talk about Mara, which is illusion, and the sort of seduction of the kind of different distractions, you could say, how much pull they might have on us. So I thought I'd talk about the Maras next week and have that topic. But if you have other topics, we can slot them in for the weeks to come. And I see you all next Tuesday night, those of you who can make it. And thank you again, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy.